everybody. So for anybody that is watching or hearing us, today I've got Leigh Harris, and Leigh is going to have a great conversation around embracing change, and she's going to be telling her story. So for anybody who's hearing us, please follow us, subscribe, like, do everything and anything that people do on social media. Download and let's get the conversation going. So Leigh, I have to say this before you introduce yourself. We are dedicating this episode to a friend of ours, and that friend of ours is Nadia Gutham. And in memory of Nadia, we are here because Nadia introduced me to Leigh, maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago?
Yes, a couple months back. Yeah,
a couple of months back. But unfortunately, Nadia passed away a few weeks ago, sometime in May, through COVID, and we want to dedicate this episode to her.
absolutely.
So Leigh, we are here, and I'm glad Nadia did introduce us. And I had met you once, and I think it was more of like a greeting more than anything. But
yes.
Now I think there's a connection, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So Leigh, please introduce yourself. That's what we do in this platform. People do a better job introducing themselves than me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leigh Ann Harris. A person who's been through, I think, quite a lot of change, particularly from a career point of view. I'm currently an entrepreneur, which I had never anticipated for myself. My intention was always to work for a boss till I retired. But the universe has plans for us, and we certainly are forced to go with the flow, which we were just talking about earlier, and embrace the change that comes with all the things that kind of we encounter that forces us to make the change. I run a natural skincare business. I also practice Reiki healing. I'm a certified master life coach, none of which was in my future plans when I left school. I studied fashion design. I worked in that industry for 8 months. I found it quite stressful and overwhelming. I then went on I worked part-time retail. I've been working since I was 15 years old. I worked in retail. Yeah. I started working part-time when I was 16, and I haven't stopped. And so that's 33 years ago. I've been working for 33 years. I then went on to work with my mom. We ran a business in confectionery, chocolate molding, cake confectionery. Did that, and I ended up in the NGO sector many years ago, probably 20 odd years ago. Ended up in the NGO sector and worked in that space for a while before I moved on to mass media. I worked in an agency, and in between that, studied project management. So I ended up becoming a project manager.
Wow!
And yeah.
It's been a long career, but you know what? Before you break all this down, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back, and the step back for me is when Leigh was 15. What did Leigh think she was going to do as a career?
I was very clear on that. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to become a fashion designer.
Okay.
That was my path. And
why? What was interesting for you around fashion? What was the excitement?
Well, I loved clothes. I loved being able to choose how you dressed, what you dressed in. And so I spent a lot of my teen years cutting things, cutting clothes, accessorizing, changing up. Um, I always wanted to be, I always dressed differently. And my mom would always laugh because I studied at, my first 2 years was with Gordon Flack Davison, who was a well-known designer in the 90s, in the early 90s. And I lived in a township. I lived in El Dorado Park, but we would take the taxi to town. And my mom and I would walk down the street, and I'm wearing thick platform shoes and stockings with flies on and a big hat. And we'd always get the strangest stares because people were wondering what was going on. So
like, who's that?
And that was me. I always I chose to be different, and I always wanted to look different. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed studying fashion. Absolutely. I mean, I did another 3 years at what was then called Technicon Natal. And because I was following Dion Chang, who had also done fashion design there. So,
yeah, I know.
You know, yeah. And that's where I ended up.
Okay. And you changed. So you talk about, in fact, not that you talk about, you've just taken us through half of your life and how you've just moved from one thing to the next thing. So what has propelled that?
You know, I think often circumstance propels that. I worked in the fashion industry for a very short period of time. It was I worked in a knitwear factory where they actually designed knitwear, and it was a family-owned business. And I worked with a husband and wife who were the most fiery people you've ever met, and I guess they set the tone for me of what I might expect in that industry. And I was young. I suppose I was young and impressionable, and I decided that space was not going to be right for my psyche, for the person that I was. It was extremely stressful. We'd have meetings, and we were only a small team of, so to say, senior people. It was the owners, and we had a sales manager, and then I was a designer. And we'd have these meetings, and the owner's wife would just throw cups at him and tear up magazines, and it was quite crazy. It was really crazy, and I ended up covering up for the factory staff when they made mistakes because I couldn't bear what was going to happen to them. And I tell you, the stress, it killed me. And so I decided to throw the towel in with that one. I did try and work in the industry again. I applied for many jobs as a fashion buyer. It didn't really amount to anything. And so that circumstance pushed me into something different. So I ended up working with my mom in her business.
Wow. And I like when you say circumstance pushed you into something else, because a lot of people, you go into tertiary thinking this is what I want to do. You come out of tertiary and life happens. It's either you don't get the job that you thought you would do based on the degree that you did, and you end up just doing something else. And because the circumstances are either saying at home they expect you to earn some money, you know, and you end up finding yourself in a totally different space that you didn't. But I'm glad you tried the industry, you know, and you got a sense of what that felt like. But I think what's fascinating for me, Leigh, is you knew yourself quite well at that age, because then you knew what you couldn't tolerate.
Yeah. I when I did my coaching course, we were exposed to the Enneagram, and if people know what the Enneagram is, yeah. And even though it was 20 years later, the Enneagram actually helps you to understand why you behave in a particular way. And, you know, it just shone this bright light on who I was and why I did things that I do. And I'm a 9 on the Enneagram.
Wow.
If people know, and 9s are fixers. Tell you fixers, yeah. We don't like confrontation. We prefer everything to be perfect so that we don't have to deal with the drama in the background. And it really helped me to understand why I couldn't work in that space. Mm-hmm. But it also helps you to understand how you need to change some of that behavior, you know. Mm-hmm. So definitely knowing myself, but it took years to get to know myself even better.
Yeah. But I think at an early age, you had an inclination of who you were and what could work for you and what couldn't, which I think is a great skill to have at a quite a young age.
Yeah, I think it is a good skill to have. I even though I thought I was a fearful person, a person who was quite fearful of doing things, I would never step back from a situation where I felt someone was being hurt. Or so I'd be the person who stood up for the underdog at school if there was a bullying incident. Even though I was shaking in my boots, I would do it anyway. Wow. And so I think knew exactly what would work for me or what was right for me, you know. Mm-hmm. Still do. Maybe a bit better now.
Yeah. Now you're older, bit wiser, mature.
Yeah. Yep. Much wiser.
No, true. So talk me through some of these changes and how you've had to deal. Like, because change, you know, there's always a line. Change is not easy. And you really need to work on yourself to embrace it. So what have you done to be able to do that? Or what fascinates you about change, to be honest?
Well, I think change is so important for us because change is what allows us to grow as people. Can you imagine doing the same thing every single day for 50 years? You get up in the morning, you eat the same breakfast, you drive the same route to work, you do the same job. There's no growth in that. And it's quite interesting because I'm the type of person who never liked change. Mm-hmm. And it's part of that 9 on the Enneagram thing, because change is easy. It keeps us, for me, it's something that would ground me, that consistency. But I understand now that without the change, I wouldn't have grown to where I am now. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about change. And that's why I feel it's so important to embrace change. I think the other thing I've also learned through the experiences is that we always have these expectations of how things have to work. And I'm really quite clear on the fact that I expect things not to quite work out the way I want to, and then I'm going to flow with that. It's like being on a raft on the river. You might hit a rock. You think you're going straight. You might hit an obstacle, and it takes you on a different route. And there's always a reason for that. I mean, I'm quite a spiritual person, not a religious person, a spiritual person, and I understand that everything that happens to us is supposed to happen for our own growth.
Mm.
And that's how I encounter change now. I mean, I wake up in the morning knowing that I have my plans for the day, but they are quite likely to change. And how do we deal with that? I've planned all of these things, but my kids are writing exams, and my eldest daughter's in matric, so they have winter school, and I'm fetching this one at 2. And you'll get a message at 1 saying, "We're done early. Can you come now?" You know, that kind of thing. So it's just, change is inevitable. And I think it's the only constant. I think that's what we need to understand, that it is going to be our only constant.
Yeah. But for some people, it seems easier said than done, right? Because when you have to engage with change, there's sometimes a sense of fear, there's a sense of anxiety, because you've got no idea of what is the outcome. How is this? It might not turn out. So that's the conversation that you have with yourself. It might not turn out the way you ideally want, and there's this sense of panic about what if it fails, and we tell ourselves all these horrific stories in our own heads. Like, how do you deal?
So, and I've come a long way with that. That's something that's taken me a long time to, I won't say fix. I mean, for me, it's about evolution. It's about evolving as a person. And I'd always say that expectation always leads to disappointment. So I'm not saying you're not expecting an outcome. But I try very hard, and this comes from mindfulness practicing mindfulness, presence.
Yeah.
Being present in the moment. I try not to think, I try to forget about the past, and it's helped me deal with stress in the most amazing ways, because where I come from, my previous position was extremely stressful, particularly if you're managing money on behalf of, other people.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time worrying about the outcomes of things. I started this with simple things. For example, on a Sunday, not even thinking about Monday, enjoying my Sunday, knowing that it's Sunday. The music of Carte Blanche would always get me very antsy, because it would remind me that it's Sunday night and tomorrow's Monday.
Yeah.
So I started that practice of not thinking about the following day. The other practice is leaving where I don't have control over something. Do not spend my time thinking about it. So I try not to worry more than once. So I don't want to think about tomorrow, a particular situation that I'm expecting tomorrow, to spend my time. And this is what I used to do a lot as a younger person, was playing out scenarios in my head about what might potentially happen. Causes so much anxiety. Try to, and it takes practice. It's a practice where you're not going to think about what might potentially happen tomorrow. You are going, and that for me has allowed me to put my fears aside when I have to do something different or something new. I was a terrible procrastinator. And procrastination comes from fear. It's all fear-based. Anxiety comes from fear, because we're thinking about what might happen. That's where our anxiety comes from. And I tell you, when I started my mindfulness practice, and it's just little things. It was getting into my car and feeling myself sit on the seat and feeling my hands on the steering wheel, and giving my drive to the office my full attention. I think we all know we drive on automatic. So you pass a little off ramp, and you can't even remember how you got there, because it's such an automated response. We driving on automatic. I stopped driving on automatic. I would try and observe every little thing. and it took practice, but took away so much of my anxiety. And I was quite interested. It was interesting to see how much better I slept at night, because even in the most stressful, and probably the last 5 years of my working life was extremely stressful, yet I felt the least stressed.
Oh, wow.
And it comes from being present in the moment. It's practicing that mindfulness, practicing that presence, because all I have is now. All I have is actually this time I'm spending with you now, Bumi. So, and that's what I'm focusing my attention on. So it's about where you put your attention, and I try and put my attention on the present.
Wow, and I recommend I commend that, because so when I think about it, you were CEO, you were running a business, and you
I was running a publishing business.
Exactly, and for you to be able to be in a space where you're saying the stress, I was able to manage stress. That's powerful. That's very powerful, because CEO positions are always stressful in some shape, way, or form.
And that position was offered to me years before. And I said I wasn't ready. But what had happened was our then CEO was retiring, and they were going to bring someone in, and that person had a restraint on their employment contract and couldn't fill the position.
Okay.
And he came back and he said, would you consider doing it if you were doing it jointly with someone else? And there was an older person who would do it with me, who was very experienced. And I agreed, but I was fearful because I knew it was such a big responsibility. And when this person decided that she could no longer be part of that, we did it jointly for 3 years, and then the rest of the time I had to do it on my own. And I almost refused. And I thought, for me, the other thing about change and expectation is I sometimes try and think about what the worst possible outcome is. Okay. And once I've acknowledged that worst possible outcome, I'm able to then take the step forward and do it anyway, because I know what the worst possible outcome is. And you might fail at it. But the amazing thing about failure is that you learn so much from it. And that's where a lot of your wisdom comes from, isn't it? From what we call failures. But I don't call them failures. I call them learning. It's lessons.
Yeah. But how do you not take failure personally? Because I think if you're able to fail and learn and not make it about yourself and about how useless you think you are, and how we have all this, you failed and then you think you're the most stupid person ever, let's just say, like, how do you get to a point where you're able to separate the incident of failure from you as a person, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And it is something that I've had to work on. For me, accepting failure or succeeding and failing is all about our egos. It's about how we appear to other people. Okay. And it's often like, what would people say that if I failed? Again, it's that worst case scenario. So if people said you failed, it's okay, what did you get out? I believe there's a gift in everything that happens to us. Yeah. So I approach it from that perspective. What's the gift from this supposed failure? What am I going to get from it that's going to help me? So I've tried to move away from what I think other people might think. And it makes the possibility of failure, I think, a lot more palatable, easier to swallow. And you could say in my last job that I might have failed because it was an ailing business. It was a struggling business. But I also gave it my all. I treated it as if it was my own.
Yeah.
And this is something I learned from my mother. My mother, she was a hustler. She had 1, 2, 3 side hustles always, always. And she used to really drill it into us about it didn't matter what kind of job you did, you gave it your everything.
Yeah.
So when I was 15, I went to work at Edgar's, and I'm a till operator. And they have prizes for people who bring in the most cash. Well, of course, I want to win the prize. I give it my all. Doesn't matter that I'm the till operator. I want to be the best possible till operator there is. Yeah. And I've kind of carried that through my entire working career, where I try to always give it my all. And I think if you give it your all, you might not have succeeded, but you've taken something from that that's going to help you succeed next time around. Because we have to, how are we going to learn anything if things don't go wrong in our lives? And I'm trying to teach my kids that. Failure is important. I think without failure, we're going to all end up being very sad, depressed people, because when you do fail, it's going to be very difficult to handle. So dealing with failure for me is about separating my ego from how other people perceive me versus the knowing what I've put into something to try and make it a success.
Yeah. No, and I think that's how I also get it. For me, it's always been, there are 2 options. I'm either going to win or lose, or succeed or not succeed,
Yeah.
And what if I fail? And my line is, am I going to die? I think that's the worst thing.
I like that.
I'm like, if I'm not going to die, then so what? Let me just
exactly. Absolutely. And
I still have an option. I still have life, and I can still pick myself up and go do something else, So that's how I always look at things and go. And I've always said, and I always make this example to people that go to interviews, and I say, I might not get the job, but because I've given it my best, I want when somebody meets me at the mall, they still look at me and go, hey, and the only thing they look at, they think, she's actually intelligent. That's all that I care about. They might think I'm dumb. That's the part that I because I've given it my best, and I'm present in that interview, and I give it my all. They might not like something about me, whatever that is. But when I walk out of there, I need to hold my head high and just go, I did it. And this is, I showed up. And that for me, that's what matters.
And I think that's the important thing. It's that showing up. I think that's important. And I wish I'd known that when I was younger, but I also understand that I had to experience everything I experienced for me to be where I am now. I mean, I could never imagine myself running a business of my own, and never mind being a salesperson. I'd always told myself, I'm not a salesperson. I can't sell things. Well, until you sell something you like, then you become a salesperson.
Yeah. I think that's fascinating. So talk to me about, so you've done all this, you've changed careers, and you've been in corporate, and you've been out of corporate, running your own business, working with your mother and stuff. So talk to me about, what is the mindset when you are moving from a job into running your business? what does that change look like, and what are the things that you need to consider?
Oh, it's a big change. It's so completely different. And entrepreneurship and running a business as the CEO for a company, it's completely different. What I know now is that as an entrepreneur, I don't even consider myself a business owner yet. I'm self-employed at the moment. My target is to become a business owner. So I'm managing people, not just myself. But I think it requires a lot more discipline, and I think particularly for me working from home, my office is on my property. And it's about trying to find the balance, when is it time to work and when is it time not to work, I'll be honest, I haven't quite managed to strike that balance. I still get distracted by home, by everything that goes on at home. But I know that I'm working for myself, so I'm quite happy to work evenings, and I'm quite happy to work weekends. And it's because, and I enjoy what I'm doing, so it doesn't feel like work to me. So it is so completely different. The one significant difference is that you were guaranteed a salary working in corporate, and as an entrepreneur you're not necessarily guaranteed a salary, and how do you deal with that? But I've taken so many lessons from the corporate space into where I am now, particularly from a money management perspective. I've learned so much about managing money, and about how much you can do in a business before you scale up. It's definitely something that's very clear in my head. And it's actually helped me because I've been able to, it's going on my second year, I've been able to manage my funds in such a way that, I thought I'd only have money for a year trying to build my business. I've managed to stretch that for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's from the lessons I've taken from where I come from, from a business where I think sometimes we ignore the signs and we carried on business as usual when you can't do business as usual. I've implemented that into my own business. And it's finding the gifts in everything you do that's going to help you grow, that's going to make you grow. And so I find working on my own so much more empowering. It really is. And the creativity for me is, I think the other important difference is that when you're working in corporate, you have a job description. When you're an entrepreneur, you are the art director, the creative director, you are the producer, you're the accountant, you are the graphic designer. I tell you, I do just about everything. And that's what makes it so fundamentally different from where you come from. You have to learn a few extra skills, and nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do everything myself.
But when do you get to a point where you think, now I need to outsource? I can't be the creative director, the producer, the graphic designer, the salesperson, the accountant.
That's the easy part. It's when the finances are looking good, then that starts to happen. So like website and all of that, you outsource. I was absolutely incapable of building a website, and I wasn't going to try. But I upload all my own products onto the website, and I make changes, and I understand the back end, and so I can do some of that. So I'm not gonna pay someone an hourly rate to do those little things for me. From the finance perspective, accountant, yes, that you need, that you, and this is the thing about being an entrepreneur. It's about scaling up from being an entrepreneur to a business owner, because you only become a business owner when the business doesn't need you to run it, where you can do other things and the business runs itself. And you only become a business owner when you are employing other people. So for now, I'm self-employed. I still call myself self-employed, but my goal is to reach that point where I become the business owner.
Yeah. And how did you choose which business you wanted to start?
That's the lovely thing. I didn't choose.
Okay, what happened?
Well, it kind of chose me. This was, so I do natural skincare, and it was something I started doing for myself. I got tired of paying lots of money for products that didn't work. And as you know, I was in the publishing space, and we did a self-publishing job for a cosmetic scientist. And she published this book on making your own cosmetics at home.
Okay.
I bought 10 books because I thought everyone in my family would just love this. I bought 10 books. I bought some of the ingredients, and I gave that out as Christmas gifts one year. I think it must have been in 2018. And no one used the books, but I did. So I started experimenting and then sharing, and then doing more research. And my friend's a hairdresser, and I had gifted her some of the products, and people would ask her what she was using. And then I was forced to actually package some of the stuff. So then I was looking for packaging because my friend's friend wanted some of the products, and then I was costing it. And I was some point just printing stickers on the printer and sticking them on containers. And so it was really quite an organic thing that happened. Something I started doing for myself. Circumstance pushed me to find packaging and all the rest so that I could supply people who had been asking. And why not? Because I was so excited about using my own product, and I was so excited about the fact that it was working. And then my girls were using it, and my husband was using it, and my sister was using it, and my mum was using it. And so it happened organically. So by the time I was retrenched in 2019, I already had a tiny little side hustle that was happening. And then it gave me the opportunity to really put my energy into it, and really put my energy behind it. And so I actually studied to inform myself better so that I was better informed. Because I'm not a cosmetic scientist, but you can be a cosmetic formulator. I did an online course in skincare formulation, which then obviously expanded my horizons to no end. Into a place where I have suppliers who I can buy raw materials in bulk, and suppliers for packaging and printing. And so it's all kind of fell into place.
Wow.
So, and again, circumstance. I was retrenched. I needed to do something. My intention was to do coaching and get my Reiki business started, but that also takes quite a lot of time. And it seems that's now been put on the back burner because I don't have time to focus on that. But alternative healing and natural skincare is my passion. It's something I've always been interested in, never ever expected it to be a career. And I suppose that is how many businesses get started.
Exactly. But I think it's that element of being pushed to that direction, because if you had not been retrenched, what are the chances that you would have exploded fully?
Yeah. Well, I managed to, even before I was retrenched, grow a small customer base who were ordering regularly from me. So who knows? But what I do know is that I'm where I'm supposed to be now. It's clearly meant to be.
Exactly. And doing something that you're enjoying. Talk to me about that part.
It's, when I go into that, and it's not even an office, it's a lab. I've got tape-tops and I've got my equipment, and I just get lost in there. Time kind of goes by and you forget that you were there. But the business excites me because I'm always exploring new formulas, considering high performance ingredients. So what can I put into this product that's going to make it better? So I spend a lot of time doing research, going back to I'm redoing my course because I think I just need to make sure I really understand. And it's a bit of physics and science. As I was helping my daughter devise a physics yesterday, and I was saying to her, I have this formula that's too acidic, and we're doing acids and bases, and I'm starting to see where I might have gone wrong, So she says, and she was shared to say, Mom, I'm actually studying, so can you not think about your products? But it's, and I never ever thought that I would have sleepless nights over a product that splits. So my oil is splitting from the water, and I'm like, can't sleep. So you spend days doing batches and batches and test batches and test batches until you get it right. And if someone told me this is what I would be doing, I would never believe it.
But the fixer in you has to get it right?
Oh, right. Tell you, can you have a sleepless night about a cream that is splitting?
But that's what you do. So you are going to have a sleepless night about it because you want the product to be perfect. And I can relate to when you're doing something you're passionate about, where you wake up in the middle of the night, and I literally now have a notebook next to my bed, because then I can wake up because I've had an idea and I
excellent idea.
Because if I don't, then I'm not going to sleep. And I love my sleep. I want to be able to at least take it out and then go back to sleep. Or else.
And saying that, Mpumi, quite a few of my products found their life in me trying to fix something for someone. So during lockdown and sanitizing and dry hands and all of that, my mom-in-law said, do you think you could try and make cuticle oil? Well, I now have cuticle oil on my product list. Nadia was one of my best customers. So I have brow growth serum on my list because she had asked me to try and make something.
She told me about the serum, and she said to me, Pooms, if you have to buy anything, just buy the serum. It's the best serum ever.
And then she would have me make things as well. So now I have a new product on my list that's called Nadia's tissue oil.
Because God, that's so cool.
Yes, we have Nadia's tissue oil, which is inspired by her because she would use the face serum on her body. And I said, you can't do that. I'm going to make you a body oil. And so I we now have Nadia's tissue oil on our product list.
No, I need to get Nadia's tissue oil, and I need to get the serum, because I did promise her. I said, okay, Nads, I'll try the serum.
Yeah.
So, and I think for me the fascinating part, now we're digressing, but we have to talk about that, is how Nadia's life has impacted all of us in some shape, way, or form. Like,
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And having to look back and think, there's just no way I would have thought Nadia would have been here at this point in time in our lives.
I think we think that about everything. And this is the whole point about being present. And particularly when you're with people.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the position we're in. We don't know. We're not promised life tomorrow.
Exactly. And Nadia was very much present. Like, she will engage you on anything and give her best and tell you, nah, that's not going to work. I remember I was talking to her about something. I'm like, no, Nads, you need to help me with this. And she's like, it's a lame idea.
Yes, so I've had that with the body cream, where she's like, don't like this. It's not working for me. I said, well, Nads, don't worry. I'm going to replace it. And everything had to be vanilla. Loved vanilla. So needless to say, Nadia's tissue oil has a dash of vanilla in it.
Oh, wow. No. So please organize a pack for me with the vanilla and the serum, and we will make a plan.
So crazy.
Yeah. No, so I think what is, so you've embraced this change, Leigh, and like what has been the challenge, like in the process of you going through all these different careers, doing different things? What has been the most challenging part for you?
Well, the most challenging. See, I always see things from the other perspective. Like, I always try, for me, it's always about what I got out of the change rather than what I struggled with it the most. I mean, I think with my current situation, my biggest challenge is finding the balance. I think my other challenge is obviously marketing, because it's not my strong suit. I always thought selling would be an issue for me, but I had this friend laugh at me because people would come here and ask questions about skincare and that I'm always passionate about. I can talk about it and I can find a solution for you. And he said, you sound just like a Tupperware salesperson. He says, I can't believe. But it gave me a great idea for me, because I'm not keen on markets. I'm not keen on doing markets because I don't feel I have a captive audience. It's just too broad and diverse. And I thought about the stuff my mom did and how they sold product in the 70s and the 80s. People were selling Tupperware and Teslas and all sorts of things. Yeah. How did they do that? They had parties. They had little Tupperware parties.
Yeah.
And so I tried my first one. And it was amazing.
Wow.
I had the most incredible response. Unfortunately, with COVID now, I've had to kind of halt it. But it was such an amazing experience because people were there. You speak about your product, they tell you what the issue is. I sold so much product on that day.
But
and I gained
virtual parties of some sort.
Can't I
Everything
do?
is gone virtual. They are very
Yes, I suppose you could. It's just not the same because you want people to feel and touch. It's a very touchy-feely kind of product, But so you kind of those things come to you in all sorts of experiences. So someone telling me I'm like a Tupperware salesperson, like that just clicked in my
Triggered
head.
an idea.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
so that is, I think, finding the balance between work and family life when you're working from home is a challenge. But we up. I'm in that space now where I'm up for any challenge, where I'm discarding the fear and I'm just moving forward.
Yeah. No, I think it's an amazing story. It's an amazing story.
Thank you.
So if there's anything, just one thing that somebody can take out of this conversation, what would you love that to be?
For me, the not changing has always been fear-based. It's always been based on fear. And when things have worked out the best for me was when I actually faced that fear, where I looked at fear right in the eye and said, not today. Today I walk around you and try it anyway. And I think that's so important because it holds us back tremendously. Our fears hold us back tremendously. And I think if we can question, for me, it's always, I'm a coach, so it's about questioning things. Why are you fearful? What's causing the fear for you to actually do this? And if you understand the why, then you can start talking about the how. And it's that worst case scenario. I have siblings who I'm fortunate are on the very same wavelength as me. So we talk about this a lot and we talk about that worst. So what is the worst thing that can happen? I might have to sell my car if I needed more capital. And then so what? Then you get a smaller car, if you have to do that. So if you look at all the ifs, then you're able to actually move forward. So for me, it is about questioning your fear, questioning why you're fearful about something, and starting to understand that fear. Because when you start understanding, then you acknowledge it. And so it's also about acknowledging it. I'm scared because if I do this and I don't earn a salary, then I might be in this position or that position. You know what I mean? And then you start unpacking that fear. You start to see it actually, when you're done with it, it's really not a big deal.
Exactly. Because there's so much that you can be able to control. And sometimes we want to control things that we don't have control over.
And that's so important. I think when we get to a point where we understand that, and you focus on what you can control.
Exactly.
That's where your focus, you get up in the morning and that has to be your intention. Today, what I can't control, I let go of. What I can control, I give it all my energy. Put all my attention to the things I can control and not give my attention to the things I can't control.
Yeah, true. No, I'm really...
And you know what they say about energy? I'm a true believer in energy. Your energy flows where you put your attention. So if you're going to put your attention on fear, that's where your energy is going to go. It's going to be focused on fear. If you put your energy on the things you can control. So I know I can do this. I know I'm capable of this. Put my energy there, Give your energy to the things that are good for you.
Exactly.
So that for me is quite important. It's and you might never let go of the fear, but if you can start embracing where the fear comes from and what it might mean for you, it does make it easier to move forward despite that fear.
Yeah. Because I always say you get different types of people that embrace change like you have done, and people that allow change to actually just stop them in their tracks, you know, and not be able to move forward because the thought of embracing the change is just too much, and they find themselves they can't wrap their minds around how is this possible. And usually then you are stuck and you don't grow and you don't explore other things because that becomes a showstopper in your life.
Yep. And
life
I
can
learned
either be too long, you doing things you don't like, or it can be too short, not doing things that you don't like. So either way.
Yeah, and I mean, I apply the same philosophy to what I'm doing now. I put all my energy in the things I can do. It's like exploring my product and selling where I can. I'm not spending too much time thinking about, oh, am I going to get it into this game or into clicks? Not there. I'm focusing on what I can do in this present moment and what I have the resources to do. And if I look at the journey in terms of where this started and where it is now, it's based on that attention that you give something and the love that you give something. It will take you where you need to go. It definitely will.
And you will get into Discam and clicks one of these days.
And I'm not even that keen on it because I want my product to rotate quite fast. So it's not necessarily something that I see for the future, you know. So I know what I want my customers to get. I want them to get this quality product, and so I will work on that for now.
Yeah. No, which is great. I really wish you all the best. And so where do people find you on social media? Where do people buy product? We need to sell.
Every week. So there's a shop on my Instagram page, which is at lightwork.is. And Facebook is lightwork.is. And my website is www.lightworks.life. And you'll find everything in the shop. And people can even WhatsApp me if they wanted to. I deal with a lot of my customers on WhatsApp. So it's 082-926-5508.
Okay. And light is in LIGHT, right?
HT, yes. Lightworks.
Okay. No, that's great. So for anybody who's hearing us or watching, please make sure that you engage and buy and support and try the products out. So I'm promising I am definitely getting the serum, and I'm getting Nadia's tissue oil so that we remember our friend who will always be here with us in some shape or form. And for anybody who's hearing this, I hope you've really taken something out of Leigh's story, and it's all about being open to where God is channeling you, where the universe is channeling you, depending on what you believe, and being open to new possibilities and being open to change and not allowing fear to actually stop you. And I think that's the most important thing that I've taken out of this.
Yeah.
So I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mpumi.
Continue engaging. And I think maybe I'll come back and do a bit of a video clip on how I think the products have worked for my skin.
Oh, I'd love that.
No, we'll definitely give it a try. So thank you for the time, and I highly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mpumi. It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.